All right, so today we are going to be looking at common units of measurement. So these are units that we are going to be using throughout this class, and you are going to be expected to know what these units are and in what categories these units belong. So you might have to do a little bit of memorization, but probably we're going to be using these so much that it will just seem natural to you. All right, so we have different types of measurements that we need to take. Sometimes we need to take time measurements. Time measurements could be recorded using a clock or a stopwatch or some other device used to measure time. So our different time units are going to be the hour, or lowercase h, minute, or lowercase min, second, lowercase s, and year, lowercase y. So there are a lot of different variations on these once we get into using the metric system. So you might see millisecond, you might see a nanosecond, or something like that. Okay, so just because all of them are not listed here does not mean that they don't apply as well. Okay, so these are the root units. If they have a prefix on them like milli or nano, that also applies. Okay, so the ones that have a star by them are ones that we will use the most often this year. So hour, minute, and second. And that makes sense. So we're going to be looking at a lot of speeds, times, things that are going on. We're probably not going to be looking at year very much because that's just too big of a time. We might, though. The next category is distance. How long, how tall, how far is something. So our units of distance are going to be meter, lowercase m, yard, lowercase yd, feet or foot, lowercase ft, inch, lowercase in, centimeter, lowercase cm. Notice that even though meter is already up here, I went ahead and put centimeter because it's used that often that it gets a special recognition. Mile, lowercase mi, and kilometer, lowercase km. So far, all of our units have been lowercase. Okay? It is important that you remember if it's upper or lowercase, because later on we're going to see examples where basically they run out of letters, or it stands for a person's name, or something else where it's capitalized instead. Okay, so these are all units of distance. The most commonly used units of distance in this class are going to be meter, centimeter, kilometer, some form of meter. Okay, the meter is our root unit here. Next we come to speed, and there's really two main varieties of speed that we measure. Miles per hour, which is mph, if you're looking at a road sign in the United States. Sometimes it's also written as mi/h, miles per hour. That slash sign is said as per. Or we also have probably the most common one in science, meters per second, which is MPS or M/S. Most often you are going to see M/S. Okay, this is going to be the unit of speed or velocity that you're going to see the most often in science, meters per second. And finally we come to volume. So with volume, this is where things get really crazy, especially in the United States, because we have so many different ways to measure volume. We have the gallon, GAL, cup, C, tablespoon, TBSP, teaspoon, TSP, pint, PT, quart, QT. Okay, those are all very common cooking volumes. So if you are used to reading recipes in the United States, you have probably seen almost all of those at some point. Okay? However, the rest of the world doesn't really use these first 6 very much. Most of the rest of the world uses the metric units, such as the liter. Notice this one is a capital L. This is different, okay? A lot of people try to put a lowercase l for liter. It is capital L. And with the liter, we have the milliliter, okay? The milliliter is 1/1000th of a liter. It is abbreviated as lowercase m, capital L. It is important that you get the capitalization correct, okay? For example, if you turn in your work and it has lowercase m, lowercase l, or capital M, capital L, or capital M, lowercase l, I'm going to count it wrong, or at least partly incorrect, okay? Milliliter is lowercase m, capital L. They're put together like that, okay? So those are the most common units of measurement that we are going to encounter with this class. Now, let's look at how we are going to apply those units to actual stuff. So this first thing should be pretty familiar. This is a meter stick. Notice there are 2 sides to this meter stick. Okay, on one side we have a fairly large unit. This is the inch. Okay, you see there's a pretty good sized gap in between each of them. Okay, if I put my knuckle down, an inch is about the size of my knuckle. On the flip side, literally, are centimeters and millimeters. Okay, so a centimeter is the gap in between these 2 big lines, the numbers. Okay, so we are going to practice making measurements. Okay, so a lot of times with this class, we're going to have to make distance measurements. Okay, we're going to have to be using those meters, those centimeters, and so forth. Okay, so let's start out with inches. Now, with this class, we're not going to use inches very much, but we might still do it. Okay, so let's say I want to know how long this line is. Okay, this is line A. Okay, so let's look at line A. To start, I'm going to place the end of the meter stick at the end of the line. Okay, end of meter stick, end of line. All right, now I'm going to go over and I'm going to see where it lines up. Okay, so I'm going to look. It goes a little bit past the 2, but it's not all the way towards the 3. Okay, so let's see how we can break this down. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 little gaps in between the 2 and the 3. Okay, it's divided into eighths. All right, so let's look and estimate how long this line is. So I can see if I look, it looks like the line ends roughly just after that first large line. Okay, so this is a quarter, half, 3/4. All right, so it lands just past the quarter mark. So I'm going to say it's maybe about maybe 2.3 inches. So I'm going to write that 2.3 inches. Now let's flip it over and let's measure this same line in centimeters. I'm going to do the same thing. Line up the end of the meter stick with the end of the line. Here, this is actually a little bit easier. I can see that the end of the line is almost dead even with the 6. I'm going to say this is right on the line. 6.0 centimeters. Now notice, I put 0.0. Why did I not just put 6? If it lands on the 6, why don't I just put 6? The reason is because I want to be very accurate. I want to know exactly where it's at. Is it 5.9? Is it 6.1? No, I think it's exactly 6. Okay, so I'm saying that this line is equal to 2.3 inches or 6.0 centimeters. Let's look at another line. Okay, let's say we have line B. Okay, line B, line it up. Okay, it goes all the way up to the 4, goes past the half mark just a little bit. I'm going to say maybe 4.6. Okay, there is a little bit of guesswork involved in this. So it's not an exact science. It's not an exact number all the time. Flip it over. We have about 11, goes in between, about to that thick line. That's 11.5. Okay, so you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, 11.5 centimeters. The other type of measurement that we can do is with volume. Okay, and volume we use graduated cylinders. So let's look at how to measure volume using graduated cylinders. So with volume, in graduated cylinders, we have what's called a meniscus. This is that little dip. You can see right here, there's like a curved line. The bottom of that dip is where you are going to read from. Okay, so we're going to read right there. Okay, so this graduated cylinder goes by ones. Okay, you see 20, you see 30, there's 10 lines in between, so it goes by ones. So let's count. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. It just goes past the 25. It's not really close to 26 at all. So I'm going to estimate it is about 25.1. Graduated cylinders are almost always milliliters. Okay? Very almost never will you see a graduated cylinder in any unit but milliliters. It's almost impossible. All right, let's look at the next one. This one also counts by ones. You can see 20 and 25, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 lines in between, so 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Okay, so let's look. We have 35, 36, and it doesn't quite make it to 37. So we're going to say about 36 point, maybe 8. Again, there is a little bit of guesswork involved in this. It could be 36.9 as well. That is up to your best judgment. Okay. Next up, we have one that counts by tenths. Okay, so we have 4 and 5. So we have like 4.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4.6, 4.7, 4.8, 4.95. Okay, so let's look. 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, 5.4. It doesn't quite make it to 5.5. I'm going to say it is 5.4, and let's call it 5.49. It's not quite there yet. Milliliters. You have to have that unit on there in order to be correct. All right, so let's end right there. This was just a quick review of the different units that we're going to be seeing most often and how to measure them.